properly because they're just making too many critical mistakes, which is what you wouldn't expect.
Lawrence going deep for his rookie Thomas. He's got it inside the 25.
Whoa.
Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Bold Take Pod. I know we've had a couple weeks off with all of our hurricane fun, but we figured we'd come back strong. Shout out to my pal Kat, my co-host, but more importantly, shout out to Nate Tice. Nate, thank you so much for joining us on the Bold Take.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think the last time I was here was middle of urban season, I think, and I had to talk everyone off a ledge, going like, "No, Trevor's fine. Trevor's going to be okay," which I know is taking some heat last year or so, but I want to assure everyone he's still going to be okay. He's still going to be fine. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, then I guess we can just complete the episode then. I mean, that's it.
Like
we've got you here, put a bow on it. No, Nate, it's so good to have you on again, bud. For those of us who for those of you out there who maybe haven't seen that episode with Nate in the past, or maybe if you don't follow him, Nate, tell everybody where they can follow you, how they can find your work and everything like that.
Mostly find me on Twitter at Nate_Tice, tweeting a lot of random stuff, a lot of football, some wrestling references. It's just to crack myself up. It's like, yeah, that's all it is. And other people like it from time to time. But you also read my words or listen to my words at Yahoo or the Football 301 podcast. But I've been a Jaguars apologist for the last few years, especially post Trevor, but also have experience in the Jacksonville area, which also helps. Jack's Beach alum for about 9 months. I lived there.
So, yeah, I like to consider you Jaguars adjacent. Yeah. I think it's plenty of history. For those that remember the last episode, Nate's dad and I go way back. Good friend of the program back in the day. Fond memories of the Tice family being here. But Nate, I think you hit the nail on the head at the beginning there. We've got you on to talk today, and we appreciate you again joining us. So we know we got you for a limited amount of time here. Really, we want to get into what's wrong with the Jaguars offense. I don't know if we have an entire evening to spend to go through that, but as well as some tidbits on perhaps why you're still kind of bullish, if you will, on Trevor Lawrence and his stock. But Dilla, I know you've got a couple of things to fire away on, so we've got comments pouring in the chat. We'll try and get to some of those towards the end, but appreciate everybody joining us live tonight.
So I'm just going to pop up a clip right here, Nate. You'll be able to see it, and then we'll chat about it. Nothing too crazy, but also really extreme for us. So shout out to everyone who's being patient. We can jump right into here. Shout out to my DM with Nate. I don't know if you guys can see that. Oh, that's not what we want.
Oh, yeah, little bookmarks. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah.
Worked so much better last time.
I try to show all 22. I get taken down. Oh, wait. I thought it was going to be a different throw. I was so excited.
Sorry. So this is just the one here where the Jaguars are making it so much harder for Trevor Lawrence. As you can see, He has to bootleg left, and then they're trying to bring it back to Brian Thomas Jr. on the right side. And obviously, I don't need to tell you what's happening there, but I would like for you to just kind of talk about some simple stuff like that that's making life more difficult than it needs to be for the Jaguars.
I would say, well, having everyone out there and healthy helps, even in Evan Ingram, who I do think is limited, but has a part in this offense that actually matters. But there's a little too many ideas going on, I think. And even a play like that is a good shot play to get to. You got the deep curl and then the wheel. You already mentioned it. Booting left in the red, tight, you're past the 50 there. That's just little minor details that I felt like was just really frustrating with this offense. I think details is a good word. Losing, ETN, which I actually think might not be the worst thing for the run game because they could stay on schedule more. Right. But also, if you remember in the first drive or early in the game against the Patriots last week, Trevor hits the over route to Christian Kirk. Same exact boot action that you just showed right there. Like where he's reversing, goes left. And now if you remember, we'll go back to the Bills game a few weeks ago. Trevor throws the pick, and people are saying, "Oh my God, this guy's a bust. I can't believe anyone ever thought this guy was good." It's the exact same route, the exact same boot action, a little different concept, but the same main route with an over route from a slot receiver. On that play, Brian Thomas Jr. has been great as a rookie. Showed his rookiness. He's 5 yards short on the over route, and then he flattens it off. So Trevor throwing to a spot because he has pressure, it looks like he sails it 5 yards over the guy's head, goes right to the DB for an interception. You watch Christian Kirk run the exact same route, he gets his depth. Trevor throws to the exact same spot, Christian Kirk goes up and gets it, and that's how it's supposed to look. So really, that's what this why I kind of always use the meme where it's an anime guy punching himself in the nuts. That's what the Jaguars team felt. It was like 10 guys are doing it right. Wow, they're so and then it's just a catastrophic error. And it's not just minor errors where the ball gets, okay, it's just batted away, or okay, it's a 1 yard gain. It's like, no, pick. No, fumble through the end zone when you're about to put the game away. Just these mistakes that just kept adding up. And that's why it's a team built with a lot of specific players. So like when one guy is down or one guy is limited, it matriculates throughout the rest of the team where it's just a domino effect. This guy can't do this. This guy can't do this. I felt like this Patriots game, we actually just saw cohesion. We actually saw kind of sustainability. And actually, even looking at underlying stats, the Jaguars offense has actually been not bad on early downs, like first and second down, like actually pretty good. But it's the third downs, it's the red zones, it's the shot plays, the designer plays week in, week out, which usually means players are kind of just like thinking too much or something's just off there. I felt like this last game was the first time they just didn't punch themselves in the nuts, and that's why it looked so much better. Does it help going against the Patriots defense? A little bit, but I also got to credit, the Jaguars going, hey, their linebackers stink. Let's just attack over the middle every single play. And it works. It was actually pretty good. So that's kind of how I pictured this offense this year. And every week before that, I felt like they were just trying stuff out and the guys weren't detailed enough or smart enough, or they're just too young, in Thomas's case, that they made those mistakes because they just didn't have those underlying kind of good to like kind of keep them above board. So it's a long-winded way to say that I know what anyone that's watched the Jaguars this year probably has a lot of like, yeah, it's just, you're getting blue balls a lot with what's going on. And I felt like that was the first game where we got a release because it helps. What helps is when Brian Thomas Jr. catches the ball and they score a wide open touchdown and he still double caught it. He still thought about dropping that ball. Yeah. And it was like, and then that was the difference. It was like, oh, he caught it this time. Okay. But that's what football is. It comes down to 5 or 6 plays. And it felt like for the first month and a half of the season that the Jaguars were losing on all 5 of those plays. And now it's like, all right, we go 50-50. It looks a little bit better.
So Nate, I want to ask you, I think it begs the question for that a lot of Jaguars fans have. I mean, how much of this is scheme, right? Setting up the players that you have to succeed, building a scheme around the quarterback you have, and then B, the players, the supplementary players, the players on the outside, skill players, if you will, that you have to work with. How much of this is scheme, and then how much of this is maybe player execution from what you watch in the All 22? And then if it skews more towards the player side in certain instances, is that still potentially related to kind of scheme and coaching and not putting them in the right situations?
I think the first problem that comes with this offense, and Press Taylor and Doug are not like, not guilty of this. They're not like clean with this, but I really think a lot of the issues stem from the personnel has joined this team, either free agency, draft, so personnel, not even just saying the players executing, but just the type of players they are. The word I kept always coming back to is that this personnel is fragile, not in the sense of injuries, but in the sense that Christian Kirk has to be in the slot. He goes outside, he's done. He's a wasted player. You don't pay us guys $17 million a year you're only good from one spot. Like that. That's not why you pay guys. You pay guys to be a every down player, to be reliant, even if he's not a number 1, be a number 2 that could be on the outside. So this is what cracked me up last year was Zay Flowers turned out to be like the most important guy on this team, because if he wasn't out there, the rest of the receivers just didn't go into the right spots because no one, if Zay Flowers out, well, Christian Kirk can't go on the outside. So come on, Jamal Agnew, come on. Like, that's a personnel issue to me. And so even this year, Evan Ingram has to be used in a specific way. Strange has to be used in a specific way. Kirk has to be used in a specific way. Gabe Davis has to be used in a specific way. Davis helps a little bit because he can do dirty work stuff, but again, it's a specific role. So I think why I'm wasting all the time kind of talk about that is that leads to the coaching, where you get guys like this offensive coaching staff that haven't done anything too offensive to me as I reviewed it. I have some issues with some of the stuff, maybe that they get a little too cute, but it's because they kind of have to, like they kind of have to use these guys because that's the only way they can use them. That I would hope in year 3 of the staff that would already been sorted out. And that leads into so to me, it's like 50% just the personnel. And then I would say it's the, 25-25 coaching and then player execution.
I'm my bad, Nate. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say, it's just funny you say that because we always hear, like, especially locally, that there's, and I mean, I'm sure you guys hear it nationally too, that Balky and Doug Peterson don't necessarily have the best relationship. And it's something like that you just said that I've never, like, I've completely understood and thought about what you're saying. Like, the players are really specific. And it was like this past week, I guess 2 weeks ago against the Bears, where I was like, man, like, not having Zay Jones and having Gabe Davis is like completely messing this offense up. But 2, you can tell where the coaches are maybe handcuffed and they can only do so much, which makes it look so much more dumbed down. So I guess I never really blame that part of it on Balky, but I can see exactly like what you're saying right now. And that makes it even more maddening.
It does. And when you get to that in the NFL and NFL defenses, you have to give them credit. They're really smart. Okay, this guy's on the field and, Luke Farrell's on the field. Okay, I know why he's on the field. It's not like Evan Ingram is lined up here. Well, I know why he's lined up there. It's kind of, you become really, you want every play to be a rock, paper, scissors and make them guess wrong. But when you line up a one formation and you only throw rock, I'm going to bet paper wins. You might catch me once, but I'm going to bet that it wins. And that's what defenses were teeing off on them. I could tell that they were like, okay, this is this formation. Get ready for a shot play or get ready for this run. Okay, it's this formation. Get ready for this run. Okay, it's this formation. Get ready for a bubble screen or something of that sort, of receiver screen. And it's not like Christian Kirk is a bad player. He's good in his role. But that's the thing. It's a specific role. It's slot only. So, okay, that means if we get into a 2 tight end look, we can't have him as an outside receiver on the ball. Now we have to get into a certain slot formation where he's in the slot and the other receivers on the outside. Luckily, Brian Thomas Jr. looks like a star. So this is good. Having that helps out a lot, as you just showed in the first clip, where it's just, those deep balls look a lot better to Brian Thomas Jr. than they did to Zay Jones, so that's really going to help. So, but I just think the rest of the personnel and even guys like ETN, again, not to take another shot at him, but it's just that if this is the guy getting 30 touches or 25 touches, we see what happens with more touches. He's not going to be reliable to get 4 or 5 yards. He might break one off for 50, but he's just as likely to miss a pass pro, to fumble the ball in the red zone, to miss the hole that would have gone 4 yards. Instead, it's -2 yards. So
to get him off schedule.
Yep. And so it's not like, and it's not an offense right now that can like go, okay, we'll get it right back on the next play. They can't take sacks. They can't take negatives. They're just not built like that. So if you get a guy like, I'm not saying Tank Bigsby isn't the greatest running back in the world, but at least he can, be simple. And sometimes being simple is what you need when the rest of the offense kind of could be up and down.
Right. He takes that 2 yards instead of kicking it outside and losing one, which Etienne just like refuses to do. And
there's one Bigsby run in the Patriots game, because I just watched it, and it's like a 5-yard gain and he hits it left, and it's like, oh, you could have maybe bounced that. But it was like Etienne would have bounced that, it would have been a -2-yard gain, and everyone would be angry about it. 100%. But it was like, hey, sometimes having that simple runner is really nice to have. Like, it really is, just to stay on schedule. You see other teams going through this right now. Like, even the Vikings.
We went from Leonard Fournette to, a couple other people to now with Etienne, and I love Etienne as a dude and as a player, but just make a cut, make a decision, and go, and then add to that Tank is, he's pretty strong. Like he'll carry the pile. He'll get, so if it's the decision between trying to bounce it out and probably losing a yard or two, or making the cut and getting those 2 yards, he's probably getting you 3 or 4, right?
Right.
And so that's got to be that's Trevor's best friend in that situation because you're simplifying it for him. So Nate, I mean, it's interesting to me. I don't know, like we didn't talk obviously a ton before you coming on, and you've had the embargo on Jaguars talk on social media.
On my show, yes, they still have it. They still get a ban, so I just find other shows where I can vent about them. It's great.
Maybe let's take a couple minutes here while we still have you, and if you would talk about some of the good things you're still seeing from Trevor, especially, and I think it's no secret to say, especially in the last 3 or so weeks, right? He had a couple of rough weeks there, but the good things you're still seeing from him, reasons why Jaguars fans should feel like that deal wasn't that he got in the offseason wasn't a complete waste of money, and that, with the right situation, the right team built around him, the right staff around him, why he could still be potentially a top 10 quarterback.
Oh, I still think there's like more than enough signs there. I mean, just even look at the last month, like you said, the last 3 weeks. It's a lot of his negatives are when he's trying too much and like, hey, I'm going to bail out of the pocket a second too early, or I'm going to try and push this throw. And which is me talking out both sides of my mouth, is that sometimes I like his creation and sometimes I like that he's trying to push the ball and stuff. But that to me felt like it was a victim of circumstances thinking, where he was just like, I have to do this. If I don't do this, no one else is going to do this. Mm-hmm. And that can sound, and part of my embargo is because anytime I tweet or comment like that, everyone goes, you're making excuses for him again. Doesn't matter if I pull up the clip of him throwing the pick and then him hitting Christian Kirk. That's literally the same route. People say, oh, that's an excuse. It's what he is able to do when everything is, cohesive around him. Mm-hmm. The accuracy. I mean, now he's launching the ball. I love having Thomas Jr. because I always thought the biggest issue with Trevor's game was the deep ball. I always thought that he throws kind of a line drive, so it doesn't have that nice arc on it that guys can get underneath. Well, just have the guy run a 4.3 and he'll get underneath it. And that helps. Stephen Ruiz has a great line that deep balls are a receiver stat. And I have never, and someone that grew up with Randy Moss, I'm like, yeah, like that, it does help a lot. And so that to me is like created a new element to his game where he's more explosive. I thought he would be more Matt Ryan-y, where he's, nickel dime, 5 to 10 yard gains, boom, boom, boom. But now I see more of that explosive element because the receiver juice was more there, So I just think the accuracy, I think his decision-making is very good still. Even on turnovers or some of the bad plays, I would say his worst plays, again, was he trying to create too much. But now the last couple of weeks, I think he reset himself. Like, don't have to be a hero every play. Don't have to do this. Guys catching the ball in the end zone helps. I do think that he is one of the best, really, I mean this, one of the best throwers of the football in the red zone because he's so accurate, gets the ball out early. That line drive throws work really well in the red zone. He gives it, I mean, the London game, the second London game against the Patriots. I mean, he had 5 throws that were brilliant, and one of them almost got dropped. Turned out to be a touchdown. Then Christian Kirk doesn't get his foot down, which is still physically it blows my mind that he wasn't able to catch that. I still don't understand the physics of that. He has another couple that he throws back line, just they don't end up touchdowns, but he gives this guy a chance, and he gives this guys chances, and that's top tier quarterback play. That's what it is. It's negative play mitigation. And then, okay, we have an opportunity here to hit a home run. I'm going to hit it. Mm-hmm. And now I'm seeing him tilt his shoulder back a little bit, which is really encouraging. And now the last couple of weeks, there's more confidence in the pocket, more, okay, now the sky isn't falling around me. I do think like this, he still is easily can be a top 10 guy, a true guy that's worth every dime that he got. And I think others feel the same way, but you need some results. Kind of say it with your chest out, and so I feel like I can say it with my chest out a little bit after last week.
So I got a question for you then too. So I'm going to play that clip again of the deep pass, and at the very end, I want you to look at Trevor's give me the play and give me the play. And so I'm going to ask you a question after you see that because it's something they have a problem with getting plays.
Properly because they're just making too many critical mistakes, which is what you wouldn't expect.
Lawrence going deep for his rookie Thomas. He's got it inside the 25.
So right there at the end, you saw him. He opens his hands up and he's like, And it's been happening a lot when they get in the red zone and after big plays, they have delay games and they burn timeouts. So you were someone who played quarterback, you know what it's like being in a huddle. After you get a big play, how much of a hamper on the offense is, communication like that, just completely bogging everything down? And in these last 3 weeks, it seems like he's just kind of accepting that they might happen and not getting caught up in it. Because I've seen him burn a timeout this past game for the first time, and normally they take the delay game.
I'm curious if it's because only one coach has a live line to the quarterback, or back in the day, it would be the backup quarterback sometimes would have a little walkie-talkie, but I think that's where it is. And I don't know who actually is the ones calling plays. I don't think they still have admitted if it's Doug or Press, right. But that's where I think the line is. And my guess of what happened on that sequence is they went tempo on the next play. That they hit when you hit a big play. All right, hurry, let's catch them. Okay, they're real and I think they probably went tempo. And he was like, okay, then what's tempo? Give me the freaking play. And right. I think that's what he was doing, signaling, okay, you're yelling tempo. When you see him signaling, go on the ball. So I'm gonna guess that it's all right, I heard tempo. Now give me the formation, give me the play. So I'm gonna guess that's what that is. I see. It usually comes up in situations like third down or red zone or short yardage, which are all considered specific situations in the NFL. So I think maybe that's where it comes up on a third down red zone play where they have something hyper specific. It's Doug, Press, offensive staff, whatever coach is in charge of that situation. Sometimes they split up the duties. Hey, this coach is in charge of red zone plays. This coach is in charge of third down plays. And then maybe in that, they're like, hey, what do you like? Well, actually, I like this. Do we like a run there? And then 25, 24, 23. And then by the time he gets the call, it's 17 seconds. He has to snap it. Okay. Headset goes out at 15. So if that doesn't happen before 20 seconds and it's a very wordy play call, this is a West Coast verbiage that's probably what happens where those situations come up. You see it a lot with staffs that split up duties. It'll happen to happens to McVay sometimes. It happens to Matt LaFleur sometimes. Aaron Rodgers loves burning timeouts and yelling at the coaches. But it comes up with a lot when it's maybe not just one guy calling everything and they maybe delegate some of the situations. So that to me is what it seems like.
Cool. No, it's super cool insight. I was just oh shoot, Nate's coming on. I watched it earlier and I was like, you can tell he's pissed and it's been such a big issue. So kind of into the mind of a quarterback. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's annoying because you feel like a jackass when you're like, hey, everyone get on the ball. And everyone goes, all right.
Now what?
Now what? You're like, hold on, just give me a second.
Are there, some of the veteran quarterbacks, are they just empowered in those moments to just bring the guys up and they know there's maybe they have two plays and they check to one? Is it just that Trevor isn't that far with this offense yet? They don't trust him. Because I feel like there are veteran quarterbacks who in those types of moments when they're trying to go tempo, it's like, okay, let me see what they give me. I'm going to check to this play or that play.
It all depends on what tempo there is. There's turbo, which is going to be like what you're saying. Think of Chip Kelly. We have one formation when we go turbo. And we run one of three plays, just so no one has to think. We know these are three plays, no matter what personnel's on the field. To me, that looked like because it was a 2nd and 7 shot play. So I think it was 11 personnel, 3 receivers on the field. Okay. And then they're trying to go, okay, we're on tempo, but we have to get to this because this, personnel is on the field.
Right.
So to me, it's more that they're being specific with the play as opposed to winning with speed. Blur, fast. So there's different kinds of tempo. It's so funny because I literally talked about this on my show this morning. Where anytime I say tempo, I always get corrected on Twitter where people go, it's up tempo because there's slow tempo too. And it's like, no, but in football parlance, tempo just means no huddle.
Right.
It could be hanging huddle. It could be get to it very quick. It just means you're not huddling. That's what tempo means. So, and I think that's what they're doing on that. They're like, hey, we just got them. We got them real. We're going to get to the next thing. I don't know, what their operation is. Every team's different of what they get to in no huddle.
It's
I could dissect a lot of this on this team.
It's
How's Cleveland doing?
What's that?
How's your left guard doing?
He's actually balling out the last couple of games.
He actually looked a lot. I kept calling him MPC, and he deserves to be called like his actual name now. So I apologize to Mr. Cleveland.
I love it.
Well, I mean, Nate, that's honestly coinciding with Trevor's better play has been, I think, you can see it in his play, but also in his trust. He's trusting the offensive line right now a lot more than he was maybe in week 2 and week 3 and week 4. And it's funny because I listened to Baselli. Him and Prisco have their show locally every Monday night, and Baselli has been swearing on this for a couple of years that one of the reasons why offensive line play, a lot of people want to blame it on development, lack of prospects, lack of talent, things like that, but just not being able to hit anymore. And then also holding these guys out, holding them back so much in the preseason and in training camp from contact and from hitting. And I don't know. I look at how they're playing now, and it's almost night and day compared to several of those weeks away. Now, granted, it's the Cleveland front seven is a lot different than the New England front seven, but it seems to be night and day. Is that what you're seeing on when you're watching the film too from our games?
Yeah, and again, opponent does matter. But the Bears aren't a joke. That defense is no joke. That's what I don't think people haven't caught up that's a top 5 defense. Like it really is. I thought Harrison had a poor showing the first couple of weeks, and I was actually disappointed because I was spouting his praises the entire summer, saying this guy's a star. Oh my God, look at this guy. And he looked awful the first couple of weeks. And I was like, what happened here? So his play is kind of indicative of everybody else. Like he's improved. I felt like the last couple of weeks, just the whole hitting thing. I totally agree with. I had a rant about this on Twitter about everyone's, cover 2. Oh my God. Oh, the quarterbacks can't throw it downfield. They couldn't get protected to throw downfield. And that comes with time. We got guys switching teams more often than ever. We don't get what the Lions have, where these guys are in the same system for 3-4 straight years together. Not a lot of the Chiefs right now. They're interior 3s now together. I think this is year 4 together, year 3 together. And then, they got the right tackle. He looks better in a second year in the system. Mm-hmm. And the hitting thing is something my dad even brings up, being a former offensive line guy. He says so many guys are worried about, skill guys and all this. It's offensive line play is going to have the biggest hit, because just think of a zone block. Guys have to be communicating and knowing, hey, my double team lasts this long. If they do this look, I have to adjust to this. That you only can practice that so much without actual game speed. Speed is different. It really is. I talked about a different AFC South quarterback this morning, and Anthony Richardson. Well, he's getting practice reps. Practice reps aren't game reps. Like bullets are different. Those are rubber bullets. That's paintball. This is actual bullets coming at you. And I think that's why actually offenses are picking up, because now the offensive lines are getting together more. I think teams that jump out of the gate are ones that hit during camp. Chiefs, Lions, these offenses, they have long camps, long practices. So I think that's why they get an advantage early in the year, while these teams that hold guys back maybe pick up as the year goes along. You also just have to have freaking talent. That helps too.
Yeah, we were questioning that quite greatly for a 2 or 3 week period there. Indeed. Yeah, it's well, Nate, I know we're up on it on the half hour here, man, and I know you've got to run to another engagement, but
my son, that's my
yes, yeah. I should have said to other more important responsibilities.
I have to be a dad sometimes. I'm always it's like it's so funny, like my life now. It's like, oh, hold on, I gotta do this. Yeah, I gotta go talk Jaguars football for a half hour.
But I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back.
I'll be here for dinner, but I'll be back. We'll go to the podcast.
I might not be here for dessert, but I'll be here for dinner. Well, man, we appreciate it. And listen, I think we, if a coaching change does happen, that might be down the road. We're all hoping. So Dylan and I are kind of in different camps. I'm in the camp that the Jags are about to get hot. We're going to win 2 out of the next 4 very difficult games, and then the schedule gets a little bit more manageable towards the back end, and that we're going to go 9-8 for the 3rd year in a row, because that's all Trent and Doug do is go 9-8, and that we might sneak into the playoffs. But if that doesn't happen, in Dilla's case, what he believes, maybe we'll have you back on in the off season. We can talk about what coaching fits for Trevor and for, and just something along those lines, man. But it's great to catch up with you.
No, thanks, guys. This was awesome. I don't know if the Packers might be a little dicey.
They're going to smoke us, dude. They're going to absolutely bend us over and smoke us.
Packers are pretty freaking good.
I'm scared.
But I do think of all teams, they actually match up decently against the Eagles, which is kind of I actually think they'll be able to move the ball on the Eagles and make that a little bit of a shootout. So I will say that one will be more interesting than people realize. So yeah,
that's the hope. We're hoping that the same miraculous turnaround that the O-line has had. That our new Bond villain defensive coordinator Rick Nielsen. I know we didn't even get into that. We're really hoping
one
that
of my worst takes. I swear he was good in Atlanta, guys. I swear. I like.
Everybody keeps telling me that, Nate. Everybody keeps telling me that, and I think it's a sick joke that I'm not in on.
Hey, Tyson Campbell turns out to be important for man coverage. Who knew? Who knew? That does help out a little bit. No, but thank you guys. Love you guys. Love Jags fans. You guys are my favorite. I mean that. So thank you.
Appreciate you, bro.
Thank you so much, man. Have a good one, bro.
Bye. All right. Well, there's Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports. Good to catch up with old Nate Dogg, Dill.
Yeah, man. That was tight. We were trying to do it last week, but life was crazy for everybody. So shout out to you guys for coming through this week, hanging out with Nate. I'm shooting him a text right now saying thanks because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll just kind of give a quick synopsis. Y'all feel free to throw some comments or some questions in the chat as well. We'll get to those here in the next little bit. We'll probably keep rapping for another 15 or 20 just on our takes aside from the Nate conversation about the prior games as well as the upcoming games. But I think for me, Dill, just kind of wrapping up the Nate conversation, the thing I've found the most interesting was that I kind of expected him to come on and shit on the scheme a little bit more. It was really just based off of kind of his embargo and those conversations and I know his frustration at times with, especially in seasons past with how he felt like Trevor was being used. But so it was almost a new take from him, or at least a new angle with the personnel. And I think it's really hard to argue, bro, against those points he was making when you look back at the past two seasons. I mean, Christian Kirk goes out and everything goes to shit. Zay Jones is out, everything goes to shit. So I found that super interesting.
Yeah, and it's funny too, I had never really thought about it. I know we talked about it a lot in years past, when Zay Jones gets hurt, the offense, completely goes out of whack. And then it was the first Bills game where I was like, man, Gabe Davis is just not even Zay Jones. He does not bring, the same boost to the offense as Zay Jones does. Not even looking at his drops and all that. Just the same kind of player. I thought he was going to stretch the field more than he does. He kind of looks like a big body receiver. I guess Nate said he does the dirty work. He's a big guy outside, so that's cool when we're running the ball. But he's been really underwhelming. I know he's kind of one of those players who has a 5, 6, 7, 8 catch, 190-yard game once a season, and that's kind of why everybody knows who he is because he's always been the 2 or 3 in Buffalo. But it's so on the head that even with the players playing better and the draft picks playing better, the free agents still aren't, contributing on a level that the Jags need them to. So it makes sense, like you said. Again, I blame so much of it on Doug, but square pegs around holes. Here we are in year 4.
Yeah, and again, I think it was probably needed, right? I mean, we've been piling on Doug and press and company, just about every angle of every podcast or every talk show or every conversation around town. Right. But to have someone break it down that clearly and speak so clearly about how each one of the players they've brought in is binary the word? I think binary is almost the word, right? Like Gabe Davis can play one area, right? Yeah. He's almost good for one thing. I'm still trying to figure out what that is, but Christian Kirk, Ingram, right? Ingram is you're not gonna fool anybody very often with Ingram being in line, thinking the advantage you have with a George Kittle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect example. You can put George Kittle in line and 6, 7 out of 10 plays on a drive. If he's lined up in line, he might be blocking. You're not fooling too many people if you're running Evan Ingram out there and doing that. So, I guess that takes away the ability to disguise somewhat as well. And I know he touched on that kind of briefly. I thought it was really interesting, the conversation about ETN versus Tank. I feel like I've kind of been saying that for a little while now, and people get mad at me. So go get mad at Nate Tice instead of me now. But yeah, super, super interesting. You know what? I appreciate Nate for a couple of reasons. One, like we said earlier, I kind of go way back with his family, back to their time here in town. But also, I just know he puts the work in, right? 100%. Like he did play. He grew up with an NFL player / coach as a dad. He grew up around it, but he puts the work in. Like he grinds tape. He understands ball. He understands scheme. He understands coverages. He understands all of those things. And he has a really great way, in my opinion, I think it's why he's had some pretty quick success in the NFL media world. He has a really great way of breaking that down and explaining it to maybe not laymen, but people,
the regulars that the people going on.
Yeah, the people who try to pay attention and fancy themselves at least halfway knowledgeable a little bit about ball.
Yeah, and it's really funny. So some people don't know. I played in like a Madden league with Nate Tyson. Even the way he calls an offense in a video game is something that I could never comprehend. And when I talk to him, like we just did, about simple stuff, he breaks it down in such a way that you have zero problem understanding. But when I'm playing him, in Madden Online, he's using Bryce Young and he's running RPO and he's throwing for 400 yards on me. It's just like he's a sicko, you know what I mean? He's such a cool dude. So again, I know he's gone, but what a cool moment for him to come and hang out with us again.
Indeed. Do you want to get into? I'm totally putting you on the spot right now because we didn't talk about this, but I know you're starting to hear whispers out there of maybe regime change or what it could look like. I know people always come to the Dillical for what the whispers are.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, so I know a lot of people, it was like a reply to someone, and I always laugh when, a reply deep in a thread gets kind of blown up, you know what I mean? Because it shows that the people are actually looking for it, because I just don't tweet it out. I'll tell someone with 40 followers, so not everyone sees it. And just sometimes they get, blown under the rug, and other times they don't. But in the last 2 weeks, for the first time, it sounds like Balky's actually on thin ice. And I had mentioned to someone else, for as much as you hear about, Doug and Press are on their way out. If they had lost this last week, it sounded like Doug was out. But for the first time, it does sound like Trent Balky's on, he's having some issues with the Cons. So, and I don't mean day to day, they're sitting there arguing, but it's the Cons are maybe losing trust. And when you think about it, when you hear about how this is the best team ever put together, and then he doubles down before the London game and they get their doors absolutely blown off, of course he's like, hey dude, I'm double downing on you in the media and the press. He only speaks fucking 4 times a year, so when he says something, people hang on to it.
Yeah.
And he gives that seal of approval, and they shit the bed really bad against a rookie quarterback. I do think that I'm starting to think for sure that when Doug goes, it's just that it's a matter of time for Trent. We're gonna maybe get our first rewind since Shad's second year in the league, when he didn't really do anything special.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like to think, bro, that Tony and Shad are capable of sitting there and saying, okay, not only did we make the statement in the offseason, this is the best team, roster, coaching staff, collection of all of the above that has ever been assembled within this organization, which is funny because if you listen to the Monday show, Tony Vaselli likes to kind of stick up for Shad, which I totally would if I were him too. Guy helped get him into the Hall of Fame through a massive party, still employs him. I probably would be a Shad Khan promoter as well. But he likes to say that his understanding of Shad's commentary was that is the best team that they've assembled since he's been here. So either way, right? Mm-hmm. Either way, if you go out and you make that comment, the point I'm actually trying to get to has very little to do with that. You go out and you make that comment, and then on top of that, you look at the free agent class that just came in, and you say, okay. You look at, we're kind of disjointed here. We thought defense was the problem, and we fired the defensive coordinator, and then the guy who you told us, Trent, was like, hey, you're going to be this is the dude. Mm-hmm. We need Nielsen. That hasn't looked good either. I mean, so again, I like to hope that from a critical thinking perspective, they're looking at it and they're like, okay, this might not be good enough.
Right. And in the offseason, I had hinted that Balky was the Nielsen guy. Like, that's the reason why it happened. And then a couple weeks ago, it was all but confirmed that, Balky is the one who brought Nielsen in. And when you see, like, I don't know if anyone goes harder on Nielsen than Pete Briscoe.
Yeah.
He just absolutely flames them in national show, local show every week. And, we make jokes. They called him Rick Nielsen this past week. So I'm hoping that, Rick Nielsen takes us to the promised land, because Ryan Nielsen, man, it's beyond like scheme and stuff. Just the way they rotate players is so stupid. Like, no one else anywhere in football, college football, like what high school is even rotating on that level? Like, it makes no sense.
So here's the part for me, bud, that I can't really rectify in my mind. Like, mm-hmm. I can't get past. I can, when I think about Nielsen, Rick or Ryan, what I can't get past is it's the rotational shit. Yeah. Because I want to stick up for him and say, man, this is poor roster construction. You literally only have two edges, and then they just hired Solly last week off the scrap heap to come in and sub packages, which, by the way, was like the fourth play of the game he was already in. Mm-hmm. But like, I want to be able to stick up for you and say, yeah, man, I've been screaming at the top of my lungs that Josh Hines-Allen shouldn't have gotten so large, that you need another edge rusher other than him and Trayvon. I've been trying to scream at the top of my lungs that Eric Armstead should have been solely a 3 technique. But it makes it hard to stick up for this gentleman and say, perhaps he's been given a little bit of a raw deal in this new situation for him, mm-hmm. from a roster perspective, right? You want to play man. Turns out Ronald Darby's got legs about as good as mine right now. You got 2 safeties who can't tackle. Like, I want to be able to say, like, this maybe isn't all on Nielsen, mm-hmm. but bro, you lose me, and you lose just about everybody else when you're rotating in guys who, like, might be playing the CFL if they weren't playing here, and they're getting significant snaps. Like, you completely lose me.
Yeah, I mean, it really blew my mind. It was last week, I think, against the Bears, 2 weeks ago at this point now. It's like the 5th or 6th play of the game, the Bears are inside the 10 already, and we've got, the 2 sub defensive tackles in, and I just don't understand at all, like, in goal situations, or, in short situations, like, why do you have your backups and literally, like, guys who are elevating from the practice squad are out there getting snaps, and you've got Devon Hamilton and your draft picks aren't playing? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me sometimes. And that 100% falls on him, like you're saying. Like, you can make all these avenues of excuses for him. And I think we should point out, too, you said it a second ago in terms of how Baselli is, pro Shad Khan. I mean, he's eyeing that job. He wants that. So
I was going to get into that. I had another comment before that, but I'll circle back.
Yeah, circle back.
Since you bring it up, like, we've got some questions in the chat. The rumors about Baselli potentially being the EVP. First of all, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on having an EVP versus just hiring the GM and hiring the coach? What are your thoughts in general?
Overall, when it comes to the EVP, I think the EVP is like a make me feel better coming into a situation that's already established and not working very well. I think it's kind of redundant if you're going to come and get a new head coach and GM. But in this situation, I think it's a little different because the person that we're talking about is so like connected to the franchise. You know what I mean? And I think if Baselli went in there and he was like not necessarily had say over the roster or who they hired, but he kind of like fed the culture to Shad Khan. You know what I mean? Like he's in there to build the culture of the organization, not the team. The coach is going to have what goes on in the locker room and this, that, and the other. But I think that someone like Baselli could connect Shad Khan to the franchise and to the fans on a different level. But I also don't think, if we're not looking at Tony Baselli, that if they did clean house, I don't think that you're seeing an EVP like something like someone that holds value, unless you get someone in that's like, I don't want to say Belichick because I don't think they should hire him, but someone who knows what's going on, a football mind like Belichick, and he's the one deciding instead of Khan. Like you could talk me into the positives of it, but overall, I do think like hitting a GM and head coach is 50% luck. Like all those dudes know football. All those dudes like have been in places that are successful because otherwise they're not getting chances to become head coaches. But I do think that it's kind of like the draft. There's a bit of luck involved, but the Jaguars need to nail it. You know what I'm saying? And if they go the route where Baselli is someone who's just like connected to what the franchise, like the pulse of the franchise, I think that's super cool. If Baselli's the one who's like, sit down, like show me your X's and your O's, I think that's like incredibly silly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've kind of waffled from my perspective on this as far as where I fall. Like I understand why people are pounding the table to say Shad and the Khan family need to hire someone, quote unquote, that you see this out there. They need to hire the Mark Lamping of the football side.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that. What worries me is a couple of things. One, I don't know that there's an exact blueprint for what that structure looks like from a structural and organizational standpoint. So then who is making the decision on what that is going to look like? If it's Shad, that worries me a little bit. If it's the EVP who has now been hired to come in, to me, that's very dependent on who that person is. You see Rick Spielman was thrown in the chat, and I've seen that too. And so for me, the appeal of a Rick Spielman is that he's always been a pretty good personnel dude. Like he's got a pretty good track record with personnel. I don't know how great he is at necessarily building a winning culture, and is a guy who spent his entire career in personnel going to be able to keep his hands out of it? Is that going to cause friction with any GM down the road or any coach down the road? It's kind of the Coughlin conundrum, like if you hire somebody who has been very successful, let's be honest, dude, in order to become really successful as an NFL coach or an NFL GM, you have to do two things, really. You have to be obviously talented enough to get there and to achieve that, but you also have to be fucking savvy enough. It's a game. Like to work your way up in the personnel world in the NFL is very, I don't want to say it's not Game of Thrones, but like it's who you know, it's who you align yourself with. There's no secret that Balky's good at playing those types of games. Yeah. So when you put enough of those types of people in a room with egos and all of those things, I don't know that there's this. I get it from the Jag fan perspective where people are like, it's what's needed. I don't know that it necessarily solves every one of our issues now and or forever, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. It's maybe a temporary smooth over, but it doesn't fix the problems.
It doesn't. And it's interesting that you said that you make the point about it being a little bit of luck. I get where I get that point where you're coming from. For me, it's this, man. It's interesting. I've been harping on the Mike Tomlin thing for a minute now, and one of the main reason that Doug has frustrated me so much isn't even necessarily the stupid going for it on fourth down sometimes, or play calls, or the Press Taylor shit. It's just, for me, it's been a little bit of a lack of leadership and ownership, and it's no secret, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm a big Mike Tomlin fan because of what he represents and how he carries himself in difficult moments. And I look at the Steelers. I mean, think about this. They've built a culture there that could take Russell Wilson, who no one could humble that man 2 years ago. I mean, his downward spiral after leaving a great situation in Seattle where they had kind of built things around him, and his ego took him to Denver, and it was a disaster. And then to bring him in and to essentially say, look, we want you to be you, but you're going to have to do it the Steeler way. I don't know who the fuck it is that we have to hire or find. I don't want the Steeler way, but just someone who's going to come in and define what the Jaguar way is. The Ravens have it, right? They have it with Ozzie Newsome, and then the secession plan to Eric DaCosta now. Like, find me that. I don't know who it is. If it's a great man of integrity, fantastic. I think that's our only chance. Like, find a man of integrity whose heart and mind are in the right place, who's not going to let ego lead. And that's the guy who I would say yes for EVP.
Sounds like you want to hire Tony Dungy.
Well, it's why is Tim Tebow is he too busy? I don't know. It's interesting. All right, well, let's touch on a couple other things, man, before we go. Again, thank you for everybody joining us live. This is a new thing, but it's been super fun being able to see you guys interact, and building that into the show. Dilla, it's funny because we've been texting back and forth for a few days, and I'm riding high. I'm feeling the vibes. You accused me maybe even of trying to manufacture the vibes. But I'm calling 2-2 in the next 4, which is our gauntlet of 4 games, so to speak. What is your honest? Let's put it on paper right now, on air, on paper. Your final prediction for the season, record-wise, from here on out.
So from here on out, I texted it out to you. I feel like I should read the exact message. Because one, I can't really remember off the top of my head who we play in order. I know we play the Packers next week, and I'm sure they're going to absolutely erase us from the face of the earth. So here's what I've got. We're going to get blown the fuck out this weekend. So there's my honest opinion. So we'll chalk that up as a loss. Like Nate Tice said, I think we can beat the Eagles. So we'll give that a W. I like us. We're going to go in there. That's going to be Doug's last stand. The last good thing he does is goes into Sunday Night Football, psych, flexed out. We're playing at 4 o'clock, which is honestly way preferred because my old ass wants to be sleeping by 10. And then I have us getting blown the fuck out by Minnesota too. So that's got me 2 losses and another W. I have us getting blown out by the Lions. The Houston Texans, we played them close earlier in the season, so chalk me up for a blown out by the Houston Texans. As we keep going down the list, I think we can beat the Titans, and we'll get to it again. We're going to beat the Titans twice, so we're at 3 more wins. I think we can beat the Jets. I think they're a shit show. Give me a W for the Jets. The Raiders, I really hope that the Raiders play Gardner Minshew because Aiden O'Connell is kind of boring. So I have us also beating them. So what's that put us at 4 more wins right now? I think Titans twice, Jets and Raiders. And then I think we'll beat the Colts again because I think that, me, Solly, Cap, JB at running back, we got a decent shot to beat that Colts team right now. So I said max, we're going to have a 7-9. The ball's going to bounce, a weird way here or there. Who knows? Maybe Sam Darnold gets hurt and their other quarterback only beats us by 13, so we don't get blown the fuck out. But I still don't believe in Trent. I still don't believe in Doug. I think that this past week was, I don't know, what's it called? A placebo. It was fake. It's not real. It was. There's nothing.
It was
nothing
a mirage.
about it. Yeah, nothing about it should honestly make you happy. If you think about it even deeper, that was a home game that you should have seen the Jaguars win, and you didn't. You had to wake up at 8:30 if you went anywhere because you needed to take a shower because you had a good Saturday night. And they won in London again. I think you guys saw that tweet. Our quarterback, incredible stat. He is the quarterback who has the most passing yards on London soil now. So, one of the guys who's played in one of the most games has the most passing yards. That's another shit stain on our franchise. So overall, I'm still not really happy with where the season's going. I don't think that there's anything really too exciting going on, but I'm really happy with Brian Thomas Jr. And after that, I really hope Doug Peterson gets fired soon so I have something to be happy about. I know normally I'm the positive one, but I'm kind of sick of it all. And I really wish that he would have got fired last week. But I do enjoy wins. I'm having a great week. Sunday was awesome. I'll never say don't win a game. I'll never say I didn't enjoy a win. But we touched on it right when the podcast started. I mean, it's one of those wins that we're going to look back at it and we're going to end up drafting the third best left guard instead of some altering franchise player.
Listen, ordinarily I would align with you, but this is the new Jaguars.
You sound like.
This is the new Jaguars, and we actually drafted the fourth wide receiver in the first round this year, and he may be the best one. So, all right, the chat right. Wants the chat.
Can I touch on something right there, real quick? Just because it's normally like a pain stake in our heart. And I talked about Brian Thomas Jr. I turned on ESPN Plus last night, and I didn't watch the game that came with cable. I watched the one that I paid $10 extra for on ESPN Plus, and I watched every single Marvin Harrison snap. Every time they zoomed in on him and they showed me him running and not getting the ball, I really enjoyed that a lot. I really, really enjoyed Marvin Harrison Jr. doing absolutely nothing last night because that's normally the guy we have on our football team. And I think it's really even cool to know that the Jaguars wanted to move up for Neighbors and not Marvin Harrison Jr. So maybe Balky figured the receiver scouting tree out, in year however long he's been around.
Year really 69. Shout out to Trent for but he also did bring in Gabe Davis and pay him lots of money. So it's a slight,
to do the dirty work. That's just a run block for
that's it, to do the dirty work. Okay, well, a couple things in the chat. One, the chat was keeping track, as the chat will do, and they believe that you actually landed on 8 wins because we're currently at 2.
Plus 6.
So 6 more is what you were calling.
Titan, Colt, Jets, Raiders.
You said Eagles.
6 plus 2 is 8. 8 plus, that's
so
9.
You got us to 8 or 9. And as our boy John Phillips said in the chat, shout out Johnny P, as he said in the chat, 8 and 9 might get a little wild in the AFC this year, Dilla. I'm just saying.
Hey, you guys know me. I will be fake as hell on the Twitter timeline for some positivity until we're getting beat by 2 scores in the first quarter. If we go into the playoffs as an 8 and 9 team, I will swear we're winning the Super Bowl. But we'll save that for a couple weeks out. We get through this little 4-game stretch, 2-2. I'll be calling you for some life advice, Mr.
I'm calling 2-2. 2-2, baby. Don't call me for your parlay advice. I went heavy on Jaguars receptions once we were down 10-0, and then we ran the ball 17 times. So I was slightly unhappy at a certain point during that good offensive output.
If it makes you feel better, I had both quarterbacks throwing for 10+ yards in every quarter, and Lawrence didn't throw the ball in the fourth. So.
It was almost like Press and Doug were like, we know that Dilla and Cap are they've been shredding us. We know that they've been like heavy betting this one. I also had $5 on the Patriots, which some people who I was watching the game with were giving me shit. They're like, Bold City Cap is betting on the Patriots, and I'm like, yeah, it's the smart thing to do, folks. Yeah, right? Join the club. You when your team loses, you at least have a little bit of monetary bonus on the back end.
And if the Jags win, who gives a shit? Like, it's the best.
Yeah, do I care about $5 or $10 if my team won? No, I would pay 100 times that if I could guarantee them winning every week. Okay, wrapping up here. Solly's here. Shout out, Solly. You should probably be here with us, but you're just kind of low-key commenting in the chat. But he said that Dilla has us in the Super Bowl. Had a quick question. Brandon Bush said, no one talks about this with Trev, but can you guys talk about his non-fumble prowess this season? That's an interesting way to look, I think one of the things with Trevor is everybody thought he was this finished product when he came in, and I think of the things with him maybe that bordered on being a finished product, it was ability things. Mm-hmm. I don't think that playing in a pro style offense in the NFL, he was as plug and play as people think. And so we're still seeing bits and pieces of the silly roll to your left, right? Whatever the term, it's not a whirly bird, but whatever we're calling it, to try and escape pressure. But yeah, he's taking care of the ball better. I love that Nate came on earlier, by the way, because when I was watching that Bills game, I knew that like the way Trevor reacted, and even if you were to go back and watch the TV, don't do it because you might turn out suicidal if you save that game or you go back and you try and watch that Bills game. But you can kind of see the way BTJ reacts as well. Like he almost knew shit. Yeah, I don't know that I ran that route properly. But that was one of the moment that happened, again, because it's on Monday Night Football and the whole world's watching, the moment that happened, that's kind of when the Flame Trevor crew came out. And so I love that Nate. I almost wish that people like Nate would, but I get it. He takes a lot of shit every time he goes out on a limb for Trevor or people like Trevor in that situation. But it is reassuring. Hopefully everybody who listened tonight and got to tune in to the Nate Tice portion, hopefully you come away like, okay, here's a dude who knows ball. He's watching literally every quarterback in the league every week.
Literally.
Yeah. And so for him to come on and talk about how he still is bullish on Trevor Lawrence, that was the whole point of this episode, y'all, really. That, and so Dilla could get a little late night snack in. What are you eating, Dilly?
It's actually pot roast, mashed potatoes.
Oh, shout out Terrence Knighton.
Yeah, Caitlin made it, but I've been sneaking it on mute, but I forgot that I'm not a professional. I forgot to hit mute.
John Phillips has a warning for you, Dilla. There's this Alabama trend coming, so Alabama has to lose every game. Are you okay with that at this point?
Yeah,
Dilla?
At this point, I'm fine with it. No worries. Jags win out. Alabama loses out. I'm good. I've seen Alabama.
We've talked about that before. You've seen enough Roll Tide in you're a very fortunate young man when it comes to your college football team.
For sure. We deserve every bit of not so funness we've had so far this season, but it is what it is. Like my dad, he's like, cause he goes all the way back to the 70s, and he's like, when they lost to Vandy, just absolutely pissed off. Like said he was like out with his friends and his like night was ruined. And I was like, I was just like, fuck it, whatever. I'm going to bed. Kind of it's just so different. Yeah. Yeah. But no, man, this was fun. I'm glad we got to do it again.
For sure. All right. Well, we'll until next time. Thanks y'all for joining us as always. And that's a wrap. Love you, JB.
Love you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good one, guys. Go Jags.
Touchdown, Jaguars.